I think we have 4 guests as well, like non-team members.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody.
Yep, thanks. Thanks for putting this on.
Thanks for being here. Oh wow, it's getting quite crowded in here, isn't it?
Let's hope it works.
Hello.
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 Ah, works finally. Very good.
So, is everyone able to see what I can see?
I think we have to manually. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I can see your screen. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So all I have done to set up is I have re-downloaded it from GitHub, just the main repo and also the decompilation tools repo. So both of those are under OpenLoco project. So we've got the OpenLoco one and the decompilation tools. So we'll be using both of them. As I said, that's all I've done. I've not done anything else. So the first thing I want to do is sort of go through an initial build of it using Visual Studio 2019, and then just show how it looks in VS 2019. After that, I'll open the loco.exe file in IDA and show you how that sort of works and how to apply the decompilation tools that have been created. Then we'll have a quick look about the project structure and where key files are for that you'll need to know if you want to be able to implement new stuff, and then we'll get onto the scary stuff, the globals, the calls, and the hooks. And then hopefully, if everyone's still following us, we'll go on to trying to recreate the town window draw function. Now this has already been done, so we can compare the new result with the current one. And then if that all goes swimmingly, then I want to have a look at the drop-down show text. Now that has not been done. I had a quick look at it earlier today. It looks not too complex, but drop-down windows are unique. Chris Sawyer, he does like to do things in his own special way. So anyway, as I said, I've downloaded the repo. That's all I've done. I always forget what things I need to do, so I always bring up the README because I always forget what it is I have to type in. So, what is it? Developer prompt. In the developer prompt, you will have to build so that's just changing the directory. And that's it, starting to build. Uh-oh. That doesn't look good.
Okay. So what's going wrong?
Well, let's have a look. It's not downloaded any of the packages.
You missed out step 2 altogether. I think that's the problem.
I normally have all of this stuff in.
Yeah, you jumped. You did step 1, and then you went to step 3.
Right, how do I do that? Because we've not actually written that down on here.
I know only in a Visual Studio directly.
See, this is why I don't like package management. You know, it just sort of works when you just have everything done once.
can't remember if I changed it or not because I wanted to be able to just be able to write msbuild/t:\restore, and that would just restore the packages. But I can't remember if I ever merged the change or not.
I don't think you've gotten around to doing that yet. At least not in the public repo.
Do we still use Travis?
We do.
Yeah, we do. We do.
We'll be stuck with it for a while for macOS as well, because GitHub Actions don't support old versions of macOS.
Okay.
But we can switch for Windows, of course.
So did you does that work then? Just using Visual Studio?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to try first, because I really hate having to go through all the package tools. We'll see if that works. I'll throw up its errors pretty soon.
Maybe I did change it. I need to look back at my commit now.
Anyway, I guess whilst this is messing about, we can have a look at the structure of the project. So the entry point of the game is in OpenLoco.cpp. It's very rare that you'd ever actually care about the entry point on this program, because it was done by Ted and it works. You don't need to really look at it. Maybe eventually when we come to making a standalone part of this, someone will have to look at this again. So that is the entry point of the whole game. I don't really care about that part. All I really care about is the windows. They're the important part for right now. That's what we're currently working on. The objects and things. Now, things in this are anything like a vehicle or a plane or all of those sorts of entities. That's what things represent. Objects, they'll be everything that's loaded from a .dat file. So you'll have a vehicle object, you'll have a track object, you'll have a airplane object. You have actually no, you don't have an airplane object. That's a type of vehicle. But anyway, there's a whole variety of different objects. Chris Sawyer made quite a few improvements on this version of the game, and over Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, where he's now got way more objects, and it's a lot easier to change more items, such as he added a interface skin object. He didn't have that in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. But all the objects are loaded from the object manager. So it's quite important to know about the object manager if you're going to do decompilation. And these addresses of all of these, you'll start to recognize them quite, because you'll be having to get a lot of these objects all of the time. What else do we have? So the things like vehicles, you get them from the thing manager. Don't really have too much to say on that right now. I tried a while back to really bash on with trying to get the vehicles working, but I just went a bit mad. You can see you can't really make any sense of this. So that's how I started to go mad, and I kind of left the project for a bit to get my sanity back. But anyway, right now we've been focusing on the windows because they're easy to see your progress. You know, you can see them come up. You can modify little bits. You can move widgets about. So they're nice and easy to work on. So that did all successfully run and build. So I'm assuming it's all set up correctly now. it's always good to give it a first run. Of course, the target is right now pointing at the DLL file. I really can't remember how you change this.
Go to the settings. I think it's debug or project settings. And they're debugging, I think.
You know what? This is going to be.
That was it. You just needed to pick the exe file. You can do target dir, I think, for target directory, and then if you go to edit, it gives you the preview of what it'll be.
Yeah.
So I think there's a macro for target directory.
Due to limitations of my keyboard, I don't actually have a backslash.
If I remember, it's Alt 92 or something.
Yeah, I also don't have a.
I think you now need to copy the exe through Windows Explorer or .cmd. Yeah, so it's just loco.exe in that folder into the bin.
I wonder if we added that to our list of things that we need to do. Oh, we did. We did have copy the data folder as well, which I've not done. I'm just gonna do a naive copy of it because you should link that, but I'm not gonna do that because, well, I can't. I'm just gonna delete this folder once I'm done. So this is booting up for the first time. It hasn't crashed, so at least I'm not suffering from the bugs which everyone else was.
Congratulations, it's working.
Turn off that.
That was a very good start. I spent with this like 3 hours at least.
Oh dear.
Right, you know, eventually, I don't think it should be that hard at getting to go. All right, so that is it's running, so that's good. Now, if you want to be doing any sort of implementation, the first thing we need to do is find a function to implement, and functions which need implemented are all like you have to replace where it jumps in from our OpenLoco program back into the loco.exe program. So that's done through one of these call functions. So this is basically saying call this address with this register. Now the registers is just a copy of the structure of the CPU. So you got EX, EBX, ECX, EDX, you know, all of the normal registers. We pass that into the loco.exe and then we jump back out and then we can pass the register values. So this is a clever bit of code that has been written which basically moves all of our register values into the correct registers, calls a function, pops out all of the register values and returns it. You don't need to worry too much about how that works. We spent quite a while making it all work on Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and I don't think it's been changed at all for this one as far as I know. Now if you need to get the flags value from a call, that's passed back on EAX, which is then passed into, so EAX is then passed into the result, which is then taken out of the function. So you can get what the flags are, so you'll need to know like if the 0 flag is set or if the carry flag is set. That is possible to get that out of there. It's pretty rare that you need to use that, but it does come in handy occasionally. So the other thing that we do to jump into and out of loco.exe is a hook. Now there's no hooks in this function. I think the window manager has quite a lot of hooks on it.
It's in the root.
You'd think I wasn't like working on this at all. It's under UI. That's what it is.
Sorry.
So before we look at the hooks, since we're just here, there's also the globals. So this a loco global means that the variable is located in the loco.exe memory. So we've got to keep the same memory addresses so that when you jump into and out of functions, that the correct global variables are updated, and so the game doesn't crash. A lot of causes of crashes are because you've not set the global variables correctly. But at the same time, we are trying to get rid of global variables as much as we can, because it's just a source of so much headache when you get a bit further into it, trying to make sure that everything's set up correctly. So you're trying to get rid of them, but at the same time you've got to make sure they're right until the very last moment. So hooks. We created this register hook, which can basically take a address in the loco.exe and it will rewrite that address so that it can jump into your function. So what this is basically saying is go to this address, rewrite that to jump to landscape generation open, and you'll have it'll handle all the registers correctly. You just need to pass in the correct values and take them out again. So that's one way of jumping into and out of the functions. I tend to avoid using the hooks as much as possible, but they do have their uses. What I like to do is I like to sort of just keep working down from one point. I don't like to add in extra things which are jumping into and out of loco.exe. But that's just people's preferences. I mean, it's not going to mean that I don't approve a pull request just because you've used a ton of register hooks. It's just different ways of doing it, and the most important thing to do is if you're going to be using the register hook is making sure that you don't call the function which you've just hooked, because I've done it before. So where you've rewritten this address so that it hooks into landscape generation open, and then as a debugging I've said go jump into 43 DA 43, and that just creates a loop, and you're just like, what the hell? I've reverted all my changes. Why is this not working? And no, it's because you've rewritten what you're trying to jump into. So don't do that. So that is sort of a little overview of how the hooks, calls, and globals work. Does anyone have anything they want to know in terms of that? No? All good? Right, we'll move on to IDA. So for IDA, you'll need to pass it in the loco.exe. We just want all the normal standard stuff. This will take a little while to start loading. In my notes, I was thinking open the file and then go read through the stuff. But of course I've done that wrong. It's not going to be the end of the world though. So I was thinking we would have a look at town window drawing function. So this has already been created. So it's not doing anything too complex. It's basically saying, first of all, it's going to draw I've forgotten what that even represents. That's just drawing the main window background and such, and then it's drawing the tabs on top of it, and then it draws a viewport, and then it draws a central button. So you can sort of see that on when we have this loaded. Oh, that's loud. So this is the window that we're looking at. So you can see it's got these tabs drawn on. It's got some text down here. It's got this button here. It's got this button here. So it's always good to have a look at, see what it is you're implementing before you play around with it. See what the limitations and what variables it has. So the fact that this can change size, that might be important, it might not, but we'll come back to that. So we're not going to look at this anymore, we're just going to start from scratch. Let's just delete all of that. Now, IDA in the background has been processing, and it has managed to generate its normal IDA view. You can also switch it into text view. Sometimes the graph view is hard to follow, so it's important to know that you can switch it into text view. If we were to go to the address of the draw function that we want to look at, shortcut for this is G. We can see here, this is a draw function, but none of this stuff has got any sort of names or anything, so it's not too easy to follow. But that is where Loco tools, decompilation tools comes in. So if you use the script file, pretty sure it's main you run. We'll find out. Seems to be. And suddenly, just like that, we've added a load of extra information. So we can now see that the first function is it's doing window draw widgets. We don't know what that one is, but I can be pretty confident this window, it's got tabs. Tabs are normally drawn as a separate function, so that's quite likely the tabs. Then we've got some sort of widgets event draw. Not too sure what that is, but we'll investigate. Can't really tell anything else about this function. What else do we have? we've got something being passed into the common format args. Now the common format args are used for drawing strings or for any sort of string work. You can pass in the offset of the string, and then you can work out what it sort of builds up the string. So if you were to open your language file, I always like to have this at my side. So right here we've got something is getting added to AX and then passed into the common format args, and then the common format args are being used to draw a string. So by using H, you can convert that into just a normal decimal integer, and it's offset 617. So you can be pretty sure it's something related to 617. You see at 617 we've got hamlet, village, town, city, metropolis, and this is a town window. So I'm pretty sure that this is it must be doing something indexing into some sort of array which has these in it. But after I've had a quick view of the whole function, I'll tend to I like to convert all of these, unless it's what looks like this looks like, because it's a multiplication, this is probably going to be accessing some sort of object, but we'll start from the top. So I like to have Visual Studio on my left. So first function is drawing widgets. Now I remember now we changed the name of that, so it's no longer window draw widgets, it's just the window pointer. We're just saying draw, so that's what that is. Now,
It's worth pointing out that if you want how to find a function if you don't know what the name is, so you want to look at the address of the function and then you do a a find all.
Yeah. So that window draw widgets, if we had gone to that function, I'm sure there's an easier way of doing this, but I'm not.
Well, you go into text view and then you can copy the address.
Oh, well, that's the easier way. So that
No, you need to go into the function.
yeah, still needs to jump to it. So that function is at 4CA 4DF. Now, if you did a search for 4CA 4DF, we would find window draw. So that's what it's called. So
And that's good for working out whether something's already been implemented. Or
yeah,
not.
yeah. It's always that's the reason why we always put these comments at the top of all our functions. It's not just for fun. It's so that we know if something's been implemented, and also so you can debug it, and for finding it again. So I think we could probably just rename that. I don't know why I put an extra underscore in. It just seemed like the right thing. So this next function, I like to always have a quick look at the function first before doing anything too crazy. It doesn't look very complex, and we've already implemented it, and it was a draw tabs function. So this is, you can rename that draw tabs. Well, it's a town window draw tabs. be good if I remembered what I just looked at. It's been put in a different namespace. Because it's common across multiple ones. Okay, so this next one, I can't remember what I said. I think I wasn't too sure what it was doing. Again, nothing too complex, doing some sort of viewport related functions. Yep, let's draw viewports. That's quite easy. I don't know why it's got such a odd name in that. Might be something that we need to change in
I'm wondering whether that name was auto-generated from something.
yeah, I think that might be auto-generated. That's better. Okay, so this next part, it's moving 9 into EDX. EDX is often used for widget indexes, I think. Pretty sure it is. So it's possible that this is doing something with the widget index. Let's have a look to see what this is doing. It's doing something with input states, window types, window numbers. Oh, I do see a compare with EDX, which is a widget index. So that EDX is definitely a widget index. So a widget index is, you'll have, for each window, it will be comprised of a number of widgets. This one's not very nicely formatted. But you can see here we've got a frame, a caption, something else, a panel, and 3 tabs. We should really name WT8. It's tab. I don't think, unless it could possibly just be image, but it's probably tab. We've still got lots of things we need to name. But a widget index is what position that widget will be. So the frame, the caption, the close button, the panel, and then the 3 tabs. So that's what you can use as. So it's, this was EDX value was 9. Now 9 is much bigger than 6, which is the biggest widget index for this window. So it can't be doing anything with the window which we're currently looking at. But let's have a look to see if that function has already been implemented. Well, it's draw viewport center button. Which is passing the widget index for that window. Something interesting is happening. Oh, this is not currently part of the I don't like that 9, so we should probably investigate why it's 9. So I said that we had looked up here Ah, I'd made a mistake. There is common widgets. Yeah. So we have these common widgets for multiple tabs, followed by tab-specific widgets. So that's the reason why we got up to 9. So I was looking at the wrong part. So 9 is center on viewport. So that will make sense. So we can replace that 9. It's always good to name things in IDA as you're going along, because it's not going to be the only instance of it. In fact, you can go to any old function and you can jump to cross references, so you can see that this is used in like a whole variety of different windows. So that'll come in handy for the next time that you're doing a function. What do we have next? We're pushing ESI onto the stack. You don't find that Chris Sawyer uses a lot of stack. He tends to try to avoid using the stack too much, but he will do it to just save a variable every now and then. So for this, I don't think there's really much to say. We don't need to write anything over here. Just need to remember that ESI has been pushed onto the stack. ESI in this is, should have probably mentioned right at the start. So ESI represents the window itself, and EBP, is it EBP? No, it can't be EBP, must be EDI. EDI represents the draw pixel info. Draw pixel info is a little structure which defines what you're drawing onto. It's got a pointer to the actual pixels. Well, it's not the actual pixels, it's a color 256 representation of the pixels, and then later on that gets converted into pixels. But it's got the widths and the height and all that good stuff. You always need to pass it into any drawing function, because the drawing function needs to draw onto something, obviously. So, as I said, ESI is the window structure. So we can use IDA to look up our window structure, which is window underscore t, and it's told us that that is a window number. Every window in the game has a window number. No, I'm thinking of Windows class. The window number represents some extra info for the window. It's often how you can index. So if in this example we've got a town, it's often the town unique number. That's what it is in this situation. But if you had a vehicle open, it would be quite likely that the window number was the vehicle ID. If it doesn't make sense to have a window number, such as say the top toolbar, then the window number would be 0 generally. That's just off the top of my head. I haven't actually checked that. Pretty sure it's the case. So anyway, we're taking the window number and we're multiplying it by hexadecimal 270. And then we're indexing into towns. Towns is from the object manager. If you went to the object manager, you'd be able to find town objects. It's not an object, is it? It's going to be
No, it's just a separate objects are for the type of a vehicle, or
It'll
usually
be
a subtype.
under. Do we have a separate folder for that? Yeah.
If you just search your Solution Explorer at the top, there's a search bar. At the top of the Solution Explorer, just type town.
It's in there. No, not town.
Yeah, that's probably Town Manager actually. I forgot that we
We did make a manager
paradigm.
class. Yep, town manager. So that is towns. It would have been quicker if I just searched for that address. That is generally the quickest way to find something. It's always going to be unique. So that is doing. Where's my autocomplete? There we go. So that 270, the reason that's 270 is because that is the size of a town. If we go to the definition of town, the size of it is 270. And we've taken the window number, which is the unique number of the town, multiplied it 270, and then we've dereferenced the array of towns with that window number. So it's just doing exactly the same when we do town manager get. If we looked at town manager get, doing towns, doing the ID, and because of the C++ will take care of doing the multiplication by 270, but that is exactly the same thing. And then we see that it is accessing towns plus 30. So that means it's accessing a field of the town. So if we were to open up town again, town.h, town structure at field 30, we've got population. Now, I don't know, we might have defined this. No. We don't seem to have it in either right now. But it's accessing the population. So we know that that line is doing town population. And what is it doing to it? It's passing it into EAX and then passing it into the common format args. Now, common format args, I think, I don't know if this has been defined, and no, I think we removed it from this. Common format args can be found from this little class will wrap it all for you, so you don't need to do anything to access the common format args. But you can see here it's ultimately when you just call it with no parameters, which is not what I've done. We're doing a Duncan messes up trying to access really obvious was just using this yesterday. How can I get it so wrong?
Is this a new structure? Because
Yeah, we added it just the other day, and I reviewed the PR, and then
so is this the equivalent of what was done in OpenRCT2?
yeah, it was quite funny how the two PRs came in at almost the exact same week.
Why was there no
And
collaboration?
no,
No, there wasn't. We did this with OpenLoco like last year actually, but it was never merged. And then like literally a day after I opened the PR for it on OpenLoco, somebody else came up with the same idea for OpenRCT. So that was pretty funny.
I suppose it's sort of the thing many of us would think of doing.
it's just if you look at how it's been done, it's almost exactly the same. I've forgotten how I'm meant to use this, so
So if you just write format arguments args equals brace open, brace close.
format arguments.
No need to use the constructor there. You can just use the empty constructor, which is the two braces. Not parentheses, but braces, and an equal sign.
Right.
So rather than using parentheses here, you use equals and then the just empty braces.
But
That should do.
I-
These parentheses or braces? I can't tell.
I want the I think that's what I want.
Yeah, and then I think you do args
Yeah.
dot push, don't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's not many examples of it at the moment.
No, that's true.
Still, you're making the code. It's an improvement over what you deleted.
So that is how it's meant to work, I think.
Bearing in mind that you've got the wrong offset now, but
Yeah, I'll come to that in a sec.
cool. I'll shut up.
How did I get it? I'm sure I wrote that at the start. Is it because it can't access?
You need to.
What a waste of time. It's because I haven't included the header.
Something must be forward declaring it.
Yeah. What was it under? Localization. Right. Back where we were.
Does that mean we need to push some? Oh no, it's just doing it in different order.
Yeah. So this, as has been mentioned, is doing common format args +2, but by doing it this way, it's actually doing it as if it was the first argument, which would be this one, common format args without the +2. So we'll just swap that round in a sec once we've done the next. So we can see the next part is doing another format args, and it's pushing another value onto it. And this one's 5a, so instead of population, it is the town size. Town size is just a uint8. So yes, so town size, then we're adding 617 now. 617, if you remember, was this hamlet. So it's a town size plus hamlet, village, town, city, so it's indexing into array. Let's just it's not a standard string. It's a string ID. I'm just forgetting everything right now. Normally can type nice and quick, but not right now. So because this function's already been done, someone has kindly already added all of these constants. We could, of course, do it exactly like this and just do town size hamlet plus the town size, but we're trying to make the implementation a better implementation. So we should always be replacing maths, which isn't really maths, such as this, with the better representation. This will just ensure that there'll be some checking of sizes, make sure you don't sort of go into ridiculous, well, go into odd memory. So
it also means if we change the IDs and they're not together anymore, it will still work.
yeah, so there's lots of benefits of doing it this way. So
maybe I would put also assert here that the town size is not bigger than, I don't know, 5 or something.
yeah, it would be sensible to add that sort of protection.
Probably
So
be good to extract the whole lot into a function called get town size name.
yeah, it makes you wonder how many times this is actually used. I guess it's,
Well, it's probably used in the window that shows all the towns in the list.
true. Well, something we can look into adding eventually. Now, as mentioned, this is the first argument, and that's the second argument, so we'll just swap those round. So it's now the correct way around. Right, so this next part, ESI is still, nothing has changed it, so ESI is still pointing at the window itself. ESI 30, that's a really obvious one. As soon as you see 30, you're just like, that's X, it's got to be X. Yeah, 32, that's got to be Y. Oh, that was easy. Hope all of these parts are as easy as this. So then what are we doing? We're adding on the widgets 1, town widgets 1. Which is what this set of widgets is. So it's this set of widgets. So it's indexing into the that array. Now, I don't like to access this global variable here. I much prefer if we actually just change this function just slightly. We did you can always, the widgets are also within the window, and I much prefer it if you access the widgets which are attached to a window. It's unlikely that they're actually going to be different, and if they are different, then you've got problems. But that's what I prefer to do. Now you can see that it's saying widget left, and then it's got this plus 80. Now the plus 80 is because it's trying to access the 8th widget, and a widget is 16 bytes long, or in hexadecimal that would be just 1 0. So you can see the size of a widget. Oh no, we didn't write down the size underneath. We often write down the size because it's quite useful to know, but we haven't on that one. Doesn't really matter. You'll have to trust me that it's only 16-bit bytes long. So the 8th one is onc8. So we haven't actually come up with a name for that.
Technically, it's the 9th one.
Center on viewport. It does sound a bit more likely.
No, I meant that because it's base 0. It's actually the 9th one, because the first one would be 0, 0, right?
Yeah.
I am to blame for that one, am I right? By the way, it's supposed to be the resize handle / status bar. Just forgot to rename it.
We don't really want to be copying this. What else are we doing? So CX and DX are quite often used for an X and Y variable. DX is often used for a Z variable as well, but it's not in this case. So what else are we doing? We've added our left, we've added our top onto DX, which is Y, and then we're decrementing it by 1, both CX and DX. So let's just add that on. We don't know what this is for yet, but it will become clear pretty soon. I'm pretty sure that will be a string ID, because we are ultimately calling drawString. And then BP, I think BP in this case is for a width. I know I've not really given any reason as to why I think it's a width, but anytime that you see a right minus a left, I mean, it's got to be a width, doesn't it? And then zeroing off AL. I'm sure we'll find out why that's important when we work out what.
Are you recording this whole session?
It should be, as long as my hard drive doesn't cut out for some reason.
Right. Okay. Because I have to go now, so I will watch the rest later.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thanks
Thank
for
you very
coming
much.
along. I hope it wasn't too boring or.
No, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Just I have a next, this Java.
Oh
webinar
yeah, I
as
remember
well,
you
so.
mentioning. Well, I
Yeah,
hope
okay.
I hope that's as good as this or better.
Hopefully. I will definitely watch this one as well, the recording and the rest.
All right.
And
See you.
see you.
So that drawString function, I had a quick look at it, and it is AL is the color. So we've seen that that has been set to 0. So the color is 0. It was indeed a string ID on BX. CX is our X. DX is our Y. And we're passing it the format, common format args on ESI. DPI has been passed on EDI, and BP is width. So that's all nice and good. Color, we've got color 0 is black. That's just another one you just start to know. If you see, if you saw this had ORed in OX80, that means it's translucent. That's another one you, when you come across it, you'll quickly realize. I often have the calculator up and have it in programmer mode. Use this quite a lot, so you can switch it between a hexadecimal. So translucent flag is when it's 1 shift right by 7, which is what 80 is in hexadecimal, and you can also see it in the bit mask. So the bit number 7. So often find that's quite useful to have open. But we're not doing anything translucent, so we don't need to bother with that. And then it is a string ID, and we're looking at 1310. So let's bring up the language file again. 1310, which is color black. It's a string ID, then a population, then int 32. So what this means is it's going to take the format arguments, and it's going to pop a string ID off the format argument and convert that into a string. So we have passed it in the town size. So what it's going to do is it's going to replace this string ID with the town size. So that's going to become Hamlet. So it'll be Hamlet population, and then int 32 is popping a 32-bit value off, which is our population. One thing you always got to make sure when you're playing about with these format arguments is the sizes. So a string ID is 16 bits, and on this it's a word, so that's a 16-bit. So that's correct. And on this one, it's just moving on a 32-bit. So that's also correct. And that's a 32-bit. The other day, I made a mistake and I shifted on a 32-bit value when it was meant to be a 16-bit value. And like, when you mess up your format arguments, it is really obvious because it'll just go absolutely, it'll be a complete mess. Anyway, where were we? 1310. So that's the population. So what you normally do is, after you've looked up that, you would have to go to where the string IDs are all defined, which is in string IDs.h under localization. And then you would scroll through here until you got to 1310. And someone's already done it for us, so we don't need to fill it in. But if we did, you know, I'm pretty sure you can work out what you need to type in there. It's always a challenge coming up with names of these, especially when it's like, yeah, this one. What would you call this one? Black string ID? I don't know. I wonder if anyone's actually defined it yet. 1313. No, nobody has yet. That'll be a fun one for someone to do. Okay, so that looks to be everything in that function. Last thing we did was we popped ESI. Now ESI was the window. The reason we pushed it up here was just so that we could pass it common format args. Actually, that's a good point. What happened to my common format args? I was sure. Oh no, it's the address we overloaded, isn't it? So that's how you pass the format args into something which is expecting a just a void pointer. So that's a little overload which has been written in. So that is our function. Let's check it out. Now, often when you go to actually run this, it will crash or something, or so I always put a little breakpoint in for the first time I'm running it. I'm wanting to see if my code actually works. Now the town window, we should be able to just get that from any. Man, I need to turn that music off. See, this is what happens when I delete all of my settings. So it'll just be what window comes up when we click this. Now the draw function will be called every tick, I think. Might be under dirty drawing, so it might not actually have to do it every tick. But as soon as we click this, it will have to draw. So it's jumped into our function. Let's just have a look, make sure everything seems kind of sensible. One thing, when things start to get really hairy, you sometimes have to look at the whole stack of the buffer. Now I access the wrong address. So we can see those are our variables which have been pushed in. We've got the string ID, which is the first one, and then, oh no, that A9 is not part of our. So then it's drawing the string, and that has worked. It's all going correctly. And so that little draw string function, that was this part here. That's what we were writing. So we know that that village will turn into a city or a hamlet. Let's have a look, see if there's any cities. See, this is a town. Still the same function, but it's now accessing the town. So that appears to work. Now, it was a suggestion that we put some protection to prevent us from accessing an invalid value because we're indexing into this array. So let's just add that in. So it's based off the. Now that I think about it, let's not do it that way. Because this town size is a scoped enum, I'm pretty sure it is, yep. What we can do instead is we can convert this to a map. Now, I was looking at a different function which did exactly this just the other day. I wonder... No, I'm not going to find it doing that. I'm just going to cheat and go access the one which I made the other day, or at least saw the other day. See, this one. Now, there's probably a debate over whether this is a better way of doing things or not.
Personally say no, because it's going to have an overhead compared to just a simple offset.
That, you know, other people have other ideas. I like the idea. Whether it actually works in practice.
What I've done in OpenRCT2 is made the map static, and inside its own function called, get town name. That way, it only constructs the map once per instance of the game, and it can't be accessed other than via the wrapper function.
All right.
Because you still need to handle the case where it's not in the map.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember. There's some compilers where if you use a switch statement on the enum, it tells you if you've left out any cases. So if you add a new case to the enum, it sort of throws an error in any place where there is a mapping of the enum to something and it's missing your new item.
I think that's in quite a lot of the compilers now, as far as I know.
Yeah, but I mean, providing they don't have a like a default case.
Yeah.
But then I think some compilers want you to have a default case, which kind of means that you don't get the check.
Nope, that's wrong. So this is our new way of doing it. How was I actually check for?
You have to do .find. Yeah, and then you pass it the town size. So that'd be town dot size, and then you have to compare it with town size names dot end.
It's all about the liberal use of the autocomplete. If it doesn't come up in autocomplete, then you've done it wrong.
You probably also want to make the map static, so it doesn't create it every time this function's called.
I mean, I'm just going to delete it out at the end of this anyway.
The original code didn't use format arguments though.
Did it not?
So it's an improvement.
Let's have a look and see both of them side by side. I think I probably will make it just do a check of the size rather than do it that way around. So this is what we had before. That is almost identical, but you see I've done a cast to widget index, but widget should always actually be a widget index. I guess that's just because of a limitation of what we've done here. I don't think that really adds anything, and it's not like a real type. It's just,
Can you make the? I don't know if you can make the enum inherit that
yeah,
widget index or not.
I'm not too sure. So they had a different idea for it. They called it town size label IDs. I called it town size names. Pretty similar idea though. So on this one, we've used a C-style cast. Always try to use a C++ cast. We actually got rid of the cast completely by using the map. So
I've been trying to use static cast a few times recently, and it doesn't let me.
well, then it's reinterpret cast.
All right. So does it one or the other always work?
Reinterpret cast pretty much always works. I mean, you should only really use reinterpret cast if static cast doesn't work and you know what you're doing, and you're really confident that what you're pointing to is what you say it is. But when we're doing this, pretty much just go by the idea of if static cast doesn't work, just try reinterpret cast. So we can see in this version, it was, as we said, this was before format args came about. So you had to index off, which makes it easy to compare to here because you can just be like, oh, it's index 0, and that's index 1, because format args is 16-bit array. But the real pickle is doing this part, where you have to pass in a 32-bit value into a 16-bit array. You have to write these horrible casts. Every time you write this, a baby chicken dies or something. Yeah, so much nicer. We just do args push. But the disadvantage is you do need to remember that sometimes, not always, sometimes what the function is expecting is a different size to what that variable is. So just be slightly wary when you use push. This is pretty much the same. See, they've defined that as a const. I guess we could make these const. See, they've accessed the widget each time. I'm sure the compiler's clever enough to not end up doing this lots of times, but then at the same time it probably compiles to basically the same stuff because, yeah, I think I prefer laying it out like that, but again, it's just pure preference. Now this one's using a with function and it's also doing -1, so I wonder what widgets with is. I haven't looked at this code base for quite a while, so a lot of things have been added to make things easier, which I just don't know about. So I'm learning, and you're also learning at the same time. So the width is just right minus left plus 1. And so I've taken off 1 to make it just right minus left. Yep, I think we will do that as well. Because function's there for a reason. Why is it not happy? Oh, it's not happy because we passed it a const, and this is not a const function. But it is. So whilst we're here, let's just add const to all of these. Const in this means that it's not modifying the variables that class has. I'm sure someone could describe it much better than I could. And that means that you can call that function on a const widget because you're not modifying it. So that made that all compile nicely. And then next thing to do is give it a little Clang format. Nothing changed, that's good. Right, I think I agree with Ted. We're gonna undo this. It was not popular. Now the other day I used standard array for something which was basically the same as this, but I was told off then. I can't remember why. Can you remember, Aaron? I don't know if you're still there.
I think the macOS CI didn't like it. It wanted you to brace initialize every single line. And
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. I'm sure there's a quicker way of removing and adding those.
I'd just drop it in a separate function, maybe just above it for now, but I expect it will be used later. In fact, you might just make it a member function of
Yeah,
town.
let's just make it a member of town.
that's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Great.
What was it? Get well, it's going to be a string ID. Town size string? I don't know.
Shame you can't make member functions on enum.
I know. The other day I was looking for something like that. And
Yeah, because in C# or in .NET language, actually, you can write an extension method on any type whatsoever. Pretty nice.
I wonder about enum classes. Can you not define members on those?
I don't think so, unless it's in some 2025 spec of C++. You'd probably have to make a whole class for string ID and then write all the operators for it so it works like an enum. Just like you have to if you use an enum for bit masks.
yeah, I saw a really clever template macro mess, which converted a. Seems I can't speak and and type at the same time, so maybe I'll just stay quiet until.
No, use std : size.
What was that?
Instead of size off, write std : size. That's it.
Oh yeah, size of is the.
That'll give you the byte length. Not what you want.
No, I don't want. I want size of, don't I? No, I do want
No.
size.
Because you just want an offset into the array by element, not by byte.
Yeah.
What's size defined as if it's not a unit? Oh, it's a
It's
enum,
an
isn't it?
enum class.
Okay. The only other thing I'd do is drop the array into the function itself and make it static, just to reduce the pollution in the class itself. In fact, I'm not even sure you can do what you're doing. I suppose you can do that. Yeah. Usually I find they want you to define the field data outside the actual class body sometimes.
Hmm. Ta-da! So we no longer need that. No longer need that. No longer need that.
What did you make it return if it was an invalid size?
Returns a null string. Is that
Okay,
sensible?
fair enough.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you'd want an exception.
No, or just a default name like town.
I think you want empty rather than null though, because null is -1, isn't it?
Yeah, it's -1. Let's return a hamlet. If all goes wrong, then you
Isn't
have a hamlet.
that null okay? That will give you an empty string.
Will it though? Because null is defined as -1, isn't it?
Yeah, it will
Yeah,
depend
but
on what
that is handled in the formatter. It says if it sees that, it doesn't actually append any characters.
I think it would.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's what
think
str none is defined as in
I think it would do
OpenRCT.
this. Invalid string ID.
Yep.
So I think I'd prefer it to tell me it's a hamlet. I don't know. Leave that to the reviewers.
I'm not sure if OpenRCT defines null as to be 0, but I think OpenLoco differentiates between empty and null. So
Now, have we defined empty?
I take the blame on this one too.
I mean, let's just check it still works, since we did make a couple of changes. See, one of the disadvantages of someone who just tries to re-implement the game is I've never actually played the game, so you get into a lot of situations where you're like, well, I don't think that can happen ever. And then you go speak to someone and they're like, no, that happens when you do this and this. And you're like, oh, all right. All of this refactoring I've done because I thought that can't happen. Well, that's a bit of a mistake.
Where we know that's never been true of OpenRSD 2 and the hacks people do. as well.
I know. That's a one advantage of locomotion. There's not as many people using hacks. 'Cause-
Except all the people who use custom station length mods and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but that's not going to really make that much difference. It'll just... It's not like when they're abusing the tile pointers and like... God's sake. Need to go and change it. Right, what do we have? We've got a village. Village. Town. So it is still accessing the right things. Let's just check a save. So I had to actually go, I think Ted asked for saves off people a while back. And that's all I've been using. Oh, it's a city.
There's still some saves I want which have this really nice custom content. Like there was a video I linked not long ago which someone had some objects with actual sort of shipment crates on the carriages,
Oh,
which look really nice. And yeah, I can't find where the objects are for that. But also just the map. You know, it wasn't just your standard scenario playing. It was like someone who was having a lot of fun with the building a network. And unfortunately, all the scenarios don't have any pre-built infrastructure, which is very different from Roller Coaster, where a lot of the parks did have stuff in it already.
yeah. Yeah, that's... it makes it rather annoying to for someone who doesn't actually play it. Now, it's always important to put a useful commit message in, so I'm not just going to write refactored town, or am I? Yeah, I think that's all I can say about now, this is currently not set up to go to my repo, so I'm not going to push it. I will do that later. So, was that easy to follow? Did that make sense? People feel as though that was of use? No? Yes?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
It's 7:30 now, and I started at 6, so that's an hour and a half. I can keep going. What I was planning on doing was having a look at this drop-down show text. Now that I think about it, that's going to take quite a while, because this is the size of it.
That's a small one in comparison to the.
Yeah, but when you look at what we were just looking at, then go to this one.
What you could do is just implement 5 lines. Call it a day. I quite often, actually, one of the things you didn't do, which I often do when implementing a function, is to, in fact, nearly always when I start implementing the function, I implement the function as an empty one, and then just see what happens in the game. Like,
Oh,
does it
yeah.
break?
Yeah.
Or so in your case, if you didn't call anything, you'll find that the window would be completely blank.
Yeah, so we can actually show that, can't we?
Kind of, I don't know if you need the first call or not. You might get a very transparent window otherwise.
You will, yeah.
That's one way to find out.
But it helps identify that you're modifying the correct, or what you think you're modifying anyway. Sometimes it's useful if you're trying to work out what a function's doing, so you sort of just don't call it, and then you see what is impacted in the game.
So we clicked it, and it is here, but we cannot see it. I think maybe, yeah, oh, there it is. There's the window.
I think it would help if you just leave the first self-draw line or something, because then you see that all the rest is omitted, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that time it put the first time it did backslash and then star, and then this time it's doing double backslash. Mysteries of how. See, now it's not drawing tabs, but as soon as we switch to the other tabs, it goes into a different draw function. So that's the reason why they draw correctly. So quite often on a tabbed window, you'll have one set which is. Have we named all the different sections here? I'm not too sure. So town. Yeah. So that first section we've put in the town namespace, and that's for what that whole tab, that town tab, and then the next tab is all under the population namespace. It has its own draw function, so it draws completely differently to what the one which we just saw, that tab. It's ultimately basically a completely different window. It just so happens to be the same window ID.
Yeah, or usually just swap out the event list, the widget list. An event list is what's calling these on mouse up, on paint, on resize.
So that's the event list, which
I think sometimes we do just share the same event if they are the same code.
Yeah, see here we've got a common update, so that'll be used across all three of these tabs. It's a really simple one, it just increments the frame number. If you're wondering what incrementing the frame number is for, I'll just load it up again. Of course, I've got a really low frame rate, so you might not actually be able to. Okay, so none of these tabs actually have animation.
Middle one doesn't it? Oh, maybe not.
No, I think you're thinking of Roller Coaster Tycoon. On this one, that's the frame number which is used to work out what frame of the animation it's showing. And this one's not actually the frame number, but it's, yeah, similar.
I was just saying you got to remember to make the tab dirty or the window dirty, otherwise you won't actually see it redraw.
I think that's currently handled by the draw tabs. No, you're talking about the invalidation, which happens every update.
Update should be doing that, right? Yeah.
It'll be in the update function that you were at before. Yeah, it's easy to get lost in these files once you implement all the tabs.
Yeah, so what it's doing is it's just invalidating the whole window, which is
not the most efficient thing.
Yeah,
but,
a bit expensive, but not the end of the world.
We do have a widget invalidation function, so I wonder why.
Probably was like that in the original code, and also this is simpler because you don't have to work out which widget you're talking about.
True.
They're all showing the same method.
I was about to say it doesn't even use the frame number, but it does.
So only the first tab that you just commented out. I was using an animation for it.
Yeah, it's actually the population tab.
Mhm.
Does use the frame number when you're not
When
in.
it's active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was relatively successful, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The advantage if we implement all of these windows as early as possible, we uncover a lot of information about the fields in these objects like town or vehicle.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a lot easier to identify fields if it's actually displaying them in a window next to a handy string label.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember when we set off with OpenLoco, we said, oh, let's do the logic first and then wonder about the windows with the new window system later when we've got the engine transponded from OpenRCT and stuff. But that turned out to be a bit too ambitious, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. This is where I went to die.
Oh, Duncan, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's so different from OpenRCT2 as well. I mean,
Yeah.
OpenRCT2 was hard enough, but for it to be nothing like that when trying to tackle this.
Yeah.
Because it's like 3 vehicles almost for every locomotive, isn't it?
Yeah, so each vehicle has a bogey and or multiple bogies, and then the frame on top of the bogies that obviously is rotating dependent on where the bogies are. Oh man, it's a complete faff. I mean, I vaguely know how it works now, but the other problem is with when I did this. And I think some of this is Ted's work as well. It's not all mine. The other issue is this vehicle struct is not. You can't trust it. You can't trust any of these fields because there's actually a whole bunch of different vehicle structs. So I started sort of splitting them up: vehicle bogey, vehicle body.
Oh, you're saying there's more unions in there than it looks
Yeah.
at the moment.
So they're actually what we should be doing is working out what kind of vehicle it is before accessing any of these struct variables.
One thing I didn't like about a lot of the code is that it just makes a lot of assumptions as to how many vehicles are connected to the train. So
Yes.
you'll quite often see vehicle dot next dot next dot next, and it's just assuming that each, that there's 3 cars. And of course, one thing we're trying to do in OpenRCT2 is ensure that we don't get any of these null reference exceptions occurring.
Yeah. So this is what we're talking about. Makes it very hard because this will be vehicle 0. Most likely that's vehicle 0, and that's probably like vehicle 2, and then that's 6. That's why what I'm going to be trying to focus on in the next little while is go down the windows for vehicles / fix the PRs which are outstanding, which have been for a little while. And then I want to do the vehicle creation functions, because I'm hoping that vehicle creation will at least give us a good idea as to why you can trust next car, next car, next car.
I remember when I wanted to remove all the global state, that involved passing in the vehicle manager into every one of those next cars. And I was thinking, is this really a good idea after getting halfway through it?
Yeah. Anyway,
Because obviously we can't put the vehicle manager on vehicle itself at the moment.
I think I'm gonna stop the recording now. So I think we can just keep talking, but I don't want this recording to be absolutely massive.